Can you believe I made this cute little dress for a baby girl with just a yard of fabric? Yes, just 1 yard, and you can also make one. So you are welcome to Joselle Apparel, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to be stitching up this cute little dress for a 1-year-old child. So if this is a video you are interested in watching, then please stick with us to the very end. I'll also take you to the sewing machine where I'll be showing you how I cleaned up the neckline and then the armhole of this dress. You don't want to miss any part of this video. Let's get right into the details. So I'm going to make use of a batik African print fabric. So I have the fold line here, and then the pieces are also here. So I'm going to be measuring the width of this fabric. Remember, this is on fold, so I have 18 inches here, so that will be 36 inches in width. And for the length, I have 45 inches as the full length of this fabric. I had a subscriber ask me about this detail, so take note of that. I'll be exhausting all this 1 yard to make this dress. So let's go ahead and then cut out the pieces of the fabric. But before that, let me show you the required materials we'll be using for this cute dress. So I'll be making use of my bias tape here. I'll use this to clean the neck area and then the armhole. And I also have my chalk. This chalk is actually a magic chalk, so when I mark on the fabric and then I use a steam iron to press, it will clean automatically. I have some matching thread I'll be using, and then buttons for the opening I'll be making at the back of this dress. I have here 2 pieces of fabric I've cut out. One is short and then the other one is longer. So I'll be using the longer one for the back and then the shorter one for the front. The width of my short fabric is 11 inches and I have a length of 6 inches. And for the longer one, I have 15 inches in width and also 6 inches in length. So I'll fold the fabric into 2. I'll fold the 2 pieces into 2, and then I will be placing the shorter fabric on top of the longer one, and the folded area are facing the same direction. So I have an excess fabric of 2 inches for the longer one. This is where I'll be placing my placket for my button. So I'm going to fold that excess fabric under this fabric this way, and I'll make sure it is properly aligned. So I have the folded end here, and I'll be having 4 pieces at this side of the fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to input my shoulder length for this top part of the dress. I am working with 4.5 inches. I'll mark it at the top, and then for the chest line I'm going to go down by 5 inches, and then I will mark this and I will connect both points with a straight line. I'll also extend the point I have here on the chest line outward to touch the sides of this dress. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to input my neck line measurement. I'll be working with 2.5 inches for the neck width of the front of this dress, and for the depth I'll be making use of 2.5 inches as well. So I'll draw in my neckline for the front. Feel free to use a curve ruler if you have one. And for the back, I'll be marking out 1.5 inches for the depth of the back neckline. So I'll also connect this to touch my neck depth, and then I would drop the shoulder of this top by 1/2 inch and reconnect to touch my neck line this way. Then I'm going to be drawing in my armhole curve. I'll just go up by 1.5 inches and then mark, and I'll draw in the armhole curve. Feel free to increase this to 2 inches if that is okay with you. At the bottom of this fabric, I'll just curve in a line just to create a bit of a slant at the front, and I went up by about 1/4 inch, and I'll go ahead and then cut out this pattern. So I'll cut out my pattern. I'll be cutting out the back first, and afterwards I would separate the back piece from the front and then continue cutting out the front. So I'm done cutting out the back. I'll take out the back piece, which is the bottom piece of fabric, and then I would also cut out the front neckline. So when I unfold, I have one full piece for the front, and then for the back, this is what the back looks like. It's actually one at the moment. What I'm going to be doing is, the placket is curved at this side, so I'm going to straighten up the neckline and take out the excess fabric I have at the placket. So I'll cut it out. I'll just trim it off into the neckline, and I'll separate the back pieces because I'll be having a button and a buttonhole at the back. So this is going to be my back pieces. I have 2 pieces for the back and then 1 piece for the front. So I'm going to work on the back piece. I'll fold in my placket by 0.75 inches. I'll be folding in twice, and then I'll press this on the ironing table. Then I'll repeat the same process for the other side. I'm folding in the placket towards the wrong side of this fabric. So I have pressed the placket on the ironing table. This is what my back pieces look like. So let's go ahead and then join the shoulders of this front and back pieces together. So I'll join the front and then the back shoulders together on 1/2 inch on my sewing machine. So I've stitched the shoulders together. This is what it looks like. I had a subscriber ask me to show how I clean the neck line of my fabric with my bias tape. So I'm going to be demonstrating that. I have my bias tape here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'll just fold the ends of the bias tape down by about 1 inch, or you can do 1/2 inch. You don't need too much. I'll overlap it at the back this way, and I'm actually stitching this bias tape on the wrong side of my fabric because I want the bias tape to show on the right side of this fabric. So I'm going to stitch the neck line down with my bias tape. Kindly take this process slowly so that it turns out very nice. So I'll stitch all around this neckline. If you do not want your bias tape to show at the right side of this fabric, that's fine. You would have to start stitching your bias tape on the right side, so when you flip it over, it would be showing at the back or the wrong side of this fabric. So I'm stitching all around the neck area, and as I get towards the center back of this fabric, I'm going to just trim off the excess of the bias tape, and I'll leave about 1 inch or 1/2 inch at the back, and then flip it over just like I'm doing on the screen now. I will just complete this bias tape. So I'm done. The next I'll do is just to also flip to the right side of my fabric, and then I will top stitch this bias tape down from one end to the other. So this is how I clean my necklines. So either you do this with a bias tape, or you cut out strips of fabric with your main fabric on bias fold, so you can be able to use the main fabric to clean the neckline and then the armhole. So I'm going to be repeating this same process for the armhole. Both armholes, I'll clean them off, and I want the bias tape to show at the right side of this fabric just to create that beautiful design that I want to achieve. So if you're enjoying this tutorial, please do not forget to like our video, share, comment. You want to hear from me in the comment section, and most importantly, please do not forget to hit on the subscribe button. So I'm done. I'll backstitch, and then this is my neckline looking so beautiful. This is the right side, and the next thing I'll do is to press it down on the ironing table, and then I'll be cleaning off the armhole as well. This is what the back looks like. So I've cleaned the armhole. I repeated the same process we use for the neckline for both armholes, and this is what they look like. It's looking so neat, so beautiful. We are almost done with the bodies of this dress. So I'll measure the bottom of this bodies. I have 11 inches. I'll take note of that. So we will go and work on the bottom part of this dress. So for the bottom part, I'm going to be having 2 pieces for my back and then 1 piece for the front. So this is the piece for the front, and I have here 2 pieces of fabric for the back. So I folded the front fabric. The length of my fabric is 14 inches, and then the width is 16 inches. So remember, it's on fold. And then for the back pieces, I have 18 inches for the width, and the length is 14 inches, just like what we have for the front. So I'll separate the back pieces, and from the top where the center back is, I'm going to mark out 1.5 inches and mark this also at the bottom of my fabric. I'll be repeating the same process for the other side of this back piece of skirt. So I'm going to head to my sewing machine and draw gathers at the sides up until the 1.5 mark I made on both pieces of fabric. And then for the front, I'll be drawing gathers on the top part of this piece from one side to the other. So I've drawn the gathers, and you draw the gathers so it will be equal to 11 inches that we had on the top part of this dress. So I'm going to pin the top part of my dress to the bottom part. I'll pin from one end to the other. Then I would stitch this down on the sewing machine. I'll be stitching down on 1/2 inch. I would also pin down the skirt of the back piece. Remember, we left out 1.5 inches. I would attach this, unfold the placket we have at the top, and then I will attach the bottom to the top, and then I would pin it down before I stitch them down on the sewing machine. So remember, I unfolded the placket so it can fit into the 1.5 mark we have on the skirt piece of fabric. So I'll be stitching both sides down on the sewing machine by 1/2 inch. I have attached the skirts to the top of this dress for both the front and then the back. This is what it looks like. I'm going to be flipping this to the wrong side of the dress, and the next I'll be doing is to stitch the center back of the skirt together on 1.5 inches on the sewing machine. I'll stitch and then leave out 1 inch at the top for the opening here, and after stitching I'll press it in by 0.75 twice inside to clean it off. So after stitching down, this is what my back looks like. I folded the excess fabric at the back in by 0.75 twice so it matches the placket on the top of this dress, and I also serged the rough edges of my skirt, and I serged the rough edges of the other skirt as well. So I'm going to be joining the sides of this dress together. I'll align the sides properly, and I'll stitch from the bottom to the armhole on 1/2 inch. I'll just stitch one side of this dress down for now. And I also decided to create some tiny ruffles at the bottom of this dress so I can be able to exhaust all this yard of fabric I'm working with. So I cut out 3 strips of fabric. At least this should be 1.5 times the bottom hem of this dress. This strip of fabric is 3 inches in width, and it should be long enough to cover the hem of this dress, at least 1.5 or more. So I'll stitch the sides of this strip together so that I can have a very long piece that I will be using to form the ruffles at the bottom of this skirt. So I'm done stitching the sides of my dress. I serge the rough edges, and remember we did not stitch the other side, so the other side is open. So this is my dress, and this is the long strip of fabric I made, which I'll be using to form gathers at the bottom of this dress. So I will take the strip of fabric and then I would stitch it down to the hem of the dress, and while I'm stitching I'll be folding in my pleats. So these are just tiny pleats that I'll be making so I can form the ruffles at the bottom of this dress. So I'll stitch all around the hem of the dress. So I'm done. I serge the rough edges as well, just to give this dress a very neat finish. So the ruffles have been attached to the bottom, and this is what my dress looks like. The next I'll be doing is to stitch the side of the dress down. So I'll stitch from one end to the hem of the dress. So I'll stitch on 1/2 inch from the armhole to the hem of the dress. So I've stitched the dress down and I'm done with the dress. This is very simple and very easy. My dress is looking so beautiful. Please remember to give it a good press. This is what the back looks like. So for the back, I'll be finishing this off with my button and my buttonholes. I intend to get some matching buttons. So at the moment I have black buttons. I'll be fixing just 2 buttons at the back. You can do 2 or 3 if that is okay with you, and I'll create the buttonholes at the other placket of this dress, and we are done. This is the opening system for this dress, and this is so simple to do. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you give us a thumbs up. Please do not forget to hit on the subscribe button. We appreciate you so much for making time to watch this video. We'll see you in our next tutorial.